wasn't forged in a single moment. It was shaped by alliance, betrayals, and battles that decided the fate of nations. Among these, one battle stand out as a devastating blow to Indian history. Welcome back to InfoBurst by Aditi. I'm Aditi Jha, your young journalist, and today we delve into Battle of Buxar, a conflict that shattered empires and sealed the fate of India under British rule. But to understand Buxar, we must first go back to time of fragile alliance, corrupt rulers, and an empire on verge of collapse. The year was 1764, but the storm had been brewing for years. After the Battle of Plassey in 1757, the British East India Company, once more merchants, had become the rulers of Bengal. The puppet, Mir Zafar, was dethroned in favor of Mir Qasim, a man who would soon prove to be far more dangerous. Mir Qasim, the Nawab of Bengal, was no fool. He saw how the British had used him to tighten their grip on Bengal, draining its wealth while keeping him as powerless figurehead. But unlike his predecessors, Qasim was not willing to be a puppet. He moved his capital to Munger, raised a formidable army, and sought revenge. His message was clear: he would take back Bengal no matter the cost. But Qasim knew he couldn't fight the British alone. He forged alliance with Shuja-ud-Dawla, the Nawab of Awadh, and Shah Alam II, the once glorious Mughal emperor, now reduced to a ruler in name only. Together, they believed they could defeat the British and reclaim their territories. Three rulers, over 40,000 troops, and the desperate hope of breaking free from the East India Company. But the British were not about to let the rebellion go unchecked. Led by Major Hector Munro, the East India Company force were smaller, just 7,000 soldiers. But these soldiers were disciplined, well armed, and led by commanders with no intentions of retreating. They were fighting not just for victory but for total control. October 22, 1764, on the field near Buxar, the two armies finally met. The Indian alliance had number on their side, but what they lacked was unity. From very start, the alliance showed cracks, disagreements between the leaders, confusion in the ranks, and perhaps most importantly, an underestimation of the British. The stage was set off for a disaster. Then, just when the battle was at its peak, the unthinkable happened. Shah Alam II, the Mughal emperor himself, withdrew his force. Perhaps it was fear, or perhaps a secret deal made in the shadows. Whatever the reason, the Mughal soldiers who were crucial to the battle simply vanished from the field. The Indian forces were left vulnerable, and the British saw their chance. Munro ordered his men forward. The British artillery tore through the disorganized ranks of the Indian army, creating chaos and panic. Shuja-ud-Dawla force began to collapse, and as for Mir Qasim, the man who had orchestrated this grand rebellion, fled. He crossed the river Ganga, leaving his dreams of victory behind. The battle was lost. The Battle of Buxar wasn't just a military defeat. It was collapse of an entire resistance. It wasn't just about losing the battle at that day. It was about the total submission of Indian rulers to British. Shah Alam II, defeated and humiliated, was forced to sign the Treaty of Allahabad in 1765. This treaty handed over the Diwani the right to collect tax in Bihar, Bengal, and Odisha to the British. What is meant in simple terms was that the East India Company now controlled the wealth of India's richest province. And with this wealth came power, real power, the kind that lasts for centuries. So why did India fail at Buxar? The answer lies not in courage of the soldiers but in the betrayal and division among its leaders. There was no single vision, no unified front. Each ruler had their own agenda, their own fear, and British, they exploited that. They were a united force, cold and calculated, ready to seize every opportunity. The Battle of Buxar may not have the fame of Plassey, but it was far more important. It marked the true beginning of British dominance in India, a dominance that would last nearly 200 years. With the wealth of Bengal under their control, the British East India Company transformed from traders to conquerors. And India entered a dark era of subjection, its ruler reduced to pawns. If you want to uncover more stories of India's fight for freedom, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. This is InfoBurst and we will be back with more stories from India Path to Freedom. Until then, stay curious and stay informed.